people always told him to protect his heart. A divorced single father with a little girl to raise shouldn't risk loving again, especially not a woman who kept pushing him away. But there he stood in that cold hospital room, sawdust still on his jacket from rushing off work, watching her tremble in that thin gown as she prepared to face something that might take her from him forever. She'd told him to leave, to forget her, to save himself the pain. Instead, he walked closer, took her hand, and said, "I'm a single dad, and I love you more than anyone." She burst into tears on the hospital bed, and everything they'd both been fighting against finally broke open. The alarm went off at 5:30, same as every morning. Ethan Reed silenced it before the second beep, a habit formed from 2 years of not wanting to wake his daughter earlier than necessary. He sat up in the dark, running his hands through his hair, feeling the weight of another day settling onto his shoulders. Through the thin walls of their apartment, he could hear the neighbor's television already on. Portland was waking up, and so was he. He moved through the small kitchen with practiced efficiency, toast in the toaster, eggs cracking into the pan, coffee brewing in the old machine that rattled like it might give up any day now. Lily's lunchbox sat on the counter, where he'd left it the night before, already packed, except for the sandwich he'd make fresh. She'd complained last week that the bread got soggy when he made it the night before. He'd listened. "Daddy." Her voice came from the doorway, small and sleepy. She stood there in her favorite pajamas, the ones with the stars that were getting too short in the legs. He'd need to buy new ones soon, which meant picking up another overnight shift at the security job. "Morning, sweetheart." He plated her eggs, added the toast. "Big day today. Parent-teacher conference after school, remember?" Lily climbed into her chair, her hair a mess of tangles he'd have to deal with after breakfast. "Miss Clare wants to talk to you about my reading. Is that so?" He set her plate down, poured her orange juice. "Are you doing okay in reading?" She nodded, mouthful of eggs. He'd taught her not to talk with her mouth full, one of the many things he'd had to figure out on his own after Jessica left. The divorce had been final for 2 years now, but sometimes it felt like yesterday. Other times, it felt like a lifetime ago, like he'd always been doing this alone. The morning routine continued. He braided her hair, fingers clumsy, but getting better with practice. Brushed her teeth while she squirmed. Found her homework in her backpack, where she'd shoved it between 2 library books. By 7:15, they were in his truck, an old Ford that needed new brakes, but would have to wait. Everything had to wait. Riverside Elementary sat at the edge of a neighborhood slightly better than theirs, tree-lined streets and houses with porches. He pulled up to the drop-off line, watched Lily gather her backpack. "I'll pick you up at 3:30. We'll go straight to the conference." "Okay, Daddy." She leaned over to kiss his cheek, then scrambled out of the truck. He watched her run toward the entrance, her backpack bouncing, and felt the familiar ache in his chest. She deserved more than this. More than a tired father and a 2-bedroom apartment and second-hand everything. The carpentry shop where he worked mornings was across town, a 40-minute drive in traffic. He arrived at 8, pulled on his work apron, and lost himself in the familiar rhythm of measuring and cutting and sanding. The smell of wood surrounded him, sawdust coating his hands and clothes. He'd worked here for 5 years, had been good at it, even before the divorce made it a necessity. Now it was survival. "Hey, Ethan, can you finish the cabinet doors by noon?" His supervisor, Ray, appeared at his workstation. "Client wants to pick them up this afternoon. I'll have them ready." He already knew he'd skip lunch to make it happen. He always did. The hours passed in concentration. His hands moved over the wood, shaping and smoothing. He'd started making something in his spare minutes over the past week, a small wooden doll for Lily's birthday next month. Nothing fancy, just something made with his hands. Something that said he was trying. He kept it hidden in his toolbox, working on it when no one was looking. By 3, he was back in his truck. Sawdust still clinging to his shirt despite his attempts to brush it off. He made it to Lily's school with 5 minutes to spare. She came running out with the other kids, her face lighting up when she saw him. That look, that pure joy at seeing him, never got old. Ready to see Miss Clare, he helped her into the truck, noted the paint stain on her sleeve. Art class. She's really nice, Daddy. You'll like her. The classroom was at the end of the hallway, decorated with children's drawings and alphabet charts. Ethan knocked on the open door, Lily's hand in his. A woman turned from where she'd been arranging papers on her desk, and something in Ethan's chest did a strange flip. Clare Mitchell was younger than he'd expected, maybe early 30s, with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore a cardigan despite the warm afternoon, and when she smiled at Lily, her whole face softened. But Ethan noticed other things too. The shadows under her eyes. The way she leaned against the desk as if standing took effort. The slight tremor in her hands when she reached to shake his. "Mr. Reed, thank you for coming." Her voice was warm, genuine. "Please sit." They settled into chairs made for children, knees awkward, and Lily immediately started showing her father the reading corner. Clare watched with an expression Ethan couldn't quite name. Fondness, maybe. Or something sadder. "Lily is doing wonderfully," Clare said, pulling out a folder of his daughter's work. "Her reading has improved dramatically since the start of the year. She's curious, engaged, asks wonderful questions." Ethan looked at the papers. She showed him his daughter's careful handwriting, spelling out simple sentences. Pride swelled in his chest. "She loves your class, talks about you all the time. She's a joy to teach." Claire's smile faltered for just a moment, and Ethan saw her grip the edge of the desk. "I wanted to mention that she sometimes seems withdrawn during group activities. Nothing concerning, but I wondered if everything is okay at home." The question was gentle, but Ethan felt the familiar defensiveness rise. "Her mother left 2 years ago. We're managing fine." "I didn't mean to imply otherwise." Claire's voice stayed soft. "Lily clearly adores you. I can see how much you care. I just wanted to offer support if needed." Something in her tone made him look at her more carefully. There was understanding there, not judgment, like she knew something about being alone, about struggling. He found himself relaxing slightly. "Thank you. That means a lot." The conference lasted 20 minutes. Clare showed him Lily's progress, suggested some reading activities they could do at home. She never made him feel inadequate, never pointed out what he was doing wrong. Instead, she highlighted what Lily was good at, where she shined. By the time they stood to leave, Ethan found himself wishing the conversation could continue. "Mr. Reed." Clare's voice stopped him at the door. "I host a fall festival planning meeting next week for parent volunteers. If you have time, we could use the help building some of the game booths." He should say no. He barely had time to breathe between jobs and Lily, and keeping their small life running. But something made him nod. "I can do that." Lily was thrilled on the drive home, chattering about Miss Clare and the fall festival, and could they make cookies to bring. Ethan only half listened, his mind replaying the meeting, the way Clare's hands had trembled, the exhaustion she'd tried to hide, the kindness in her eyes when she looked at his daughter. That night after Lily was asleep, he sat at their small kitchen table with his own dinner leftover pasta reheated in the microwave. The apartment was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator and distant traffic. He thought about Jessica, who'd left because she couldn't handle being a mother, who'd walked away from both of them without looking back. He thought about the 2 years since the slow process of learning to be enough for Lily on his own. And he thought about Clare Mitchell, who'd looked at his daughter with such genuine care, who'd spoken to him without pity. He told himself it didn't matter. Told himself he was reading too much into a simple parent-teacher conference. Told himself to focus on what mattered, which was Lily, and work, and keeping their heads above water. But when he finally went to bed that night, he found himself looking forward to next week's festival meeting. Just to help with the booths, he told himself. Nothing more. The following Tuesday, Ethan showed up at the school's multi-purpose room with his toolbox. A handful of other parents milled around along with Clare, who wore jeans and an oversized sweater despite the mild evening. She brightened when she saw him, and Ethan felt that strange flip in his chest again. "Mr. Reed, I'm so glad you could make it." She gestured to a pile of lumber and supplies in the corner. "We need to build 3 game booths, ring toss duck pond, and a prize wheel. I have rough sketches, but no real construction experience." "I can work with that." He set down his toolbox, studying her drawings. They were surprisingly detailed measurements included. "You've thought this through. I have a lot of time to plan." Something flickered across her face, gone before he could identify it. "Let me introduce you to the other volunteers." The next 2 hours passed quickly. Ethan fell into the familiar rhythm of building, measuring, and cutting, while other parents painted and decorated. Claire moved between groups, organizing and encouraging, but he noticed she sat down frequently, noticed the way she rubbed her temples when she thought no one was looking, noticed how carefully she moved like her body hurt. "You're really good at this." Claire appeared beside him as he secured the last panel of the ring toss booth. "Have you always worked with wood?" "Learned from my dad." He tested the stability of the structure, satisfied with the result. "He was a carpenter. Taught me young." "Lily's lucky to have you." The words were simple, but the way she said them made Ethan look up. Claire was watching him with an expression he recognized because he'd seen it in the mirror. Loneliness, the kind that came from facing things alone. "Miss Clare." One of the other parents called her away, and the moment broke. But later, as Ethan packed his tools, Claire approached again. "Thank you for tonight. Really." She held out a small cardboard box. "I made cookies, for helping. It's not much, but..." He took the box, felt the warmth still radiating from inside. "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "See you at the festival." "We'll be there." The festival was the following Saturday, and Lily vibrated with excitement from the moment she woke up. Ethan helped her pick out clothes, made her favorite breakfast, and tried to ignore his own anticipation. It was just a school event, just something for Lily. That's what he told himself. The schoolyard had been transformed with booths and games and decorations. Children ran everywhere, and parent volunteers managed controlled chaos. Ethan found Claire near the entrance clipboard, in hand directing traffic. She'd pulled her hair up, and in the morning sunlight, he could see how pale she was, how thin her wrists looked below her sleeves. "Daddy, can I go play?" Lily was already tugging his hand toward the games. "Stay where I can see you." He watched her run off, then turned to Claire. "Need help with anything?" Relief washed over her face. "The duck pond pump isn't working. I've been trying to figure it out, but..." She gestured helplessly at the mechanical equipment. It took him 20 minutes to identify the problem, a loose connection easily fixed. Claire sat nearby on a bench watching and occasionally handing him tools. They talked while he worked, easy conversation about nothing important. She told him about her students, about why she loved teaching. He found himself sharing about the carpentry shop, about Lily's latest obsession with dinosaurs. It felt natural, comfortable. It felt like something he hadn't experienced in a long time. All set. He tested the pump water flowing smoothly into the duck pond. Should be good for the day. "Thank you." Claire stood, swayed slightly. Ethan's hand shot out to steady her, and he felt how much she was trembling. "Are you okay?" "Just tired." But her voice wavered. "I've been working a lot lately." "Claire." He kept his hand on her arm, concerned now. "When's the last time you took a break?" She looked up at him, and for a moment her composure cracked. He saw fear there, quickly hidden. "I'm fine, really. Just need to pace myself better." He wanted to press to ask what was really wrong, but a parent called for Claire's help, and the moment passed. She pulled away with a quick smile, and Ethan watched her walk toward the craft booth, noting the careful way she moved. Something was wrong. He knew it the way he knew when Lily was hiding something, an instinct that went deeper than logic. The festival continued around them. Ethan helped where needed, keeping one eye on Lily and the other on Claire. By afternoon, she looked ready to collapse. When she sat down at the volunteer table, her hands shook so badly she could barely hold her water bottle. "I'll drive you home." It wasn't a question. Ethan appeared beside her with his truck keys in hand. "Lily and we'll make sure you get there safe." "I can't ask you to do that." "You're not asking." He'd already made the decision. "Where do you live?" She gave him the address after a moment's hesitation, too exhausted to argue. Lily was confused by the change in plans, but went along cheerfully chattering to Miss Clare about the games she'd played. Claire sat in the passenger seat, head leaning against the window, and Ethan's concern deepened with every block they drove. Her apartment building was modest, similar to his own. He helped her to her door, Lily holding his other hand. Claire fumbled with her keys, and he gently took them from her, unlocked the door himself. "Thank you." She leaned against the doorframe. "I'm sorry for being such a burden." "You're not." The words came out more forcefully than he intended. "Claire, what's going on? And don't tell me you're just tired." She looked at him for a long moment, then at Lily, then back at him. Something in her expression changed a wall coming down. "Can we talk?" "Maybe not here, not with—" She glanced at Lily. "Lily, can you sit in the hallway for a minute?" He kept his voice calm. "Stay right where I can see you." His daughter nodded, settling on the carpet with her backpack. Ethan followed Claire inside, leaving the door open. The apartment was neat, sparse. Photos on the walls, a few books, but something about it felt temporary, like she wasn't planning to stay long. "I have cancer." The words came out flat, matter-of-fact. "Breast cancer stage 3. I was diagnosed 4 months ago." The floor seemed to tilt under Ethan's feet. "Claire, I'm handling it." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I start chemotherapy next week. The doctors say I have a good chance, but it's going to be rough. I'll need to take medical leave from school." "You're going through this alone?" The thought made something in his chest tighten painfully. "My parents died 6 years ago. No siblings. I have friends, but—" She shrugged, and the gesture looked defeated. "I don't want to burden anyone." "Stop saying that." He moved closer, needing her to understand. "You're not a burden. You're going through something terrible, and you don't have to do it alone. You have Lily to think about." Her voice cracked. "You barely know me. I can't ask you to—" "You're not asking. I'm offering." He had no idea where the words were coming from, only that they were true. "Let me help. Please. Rides to appointments, grocery shopping, whatever you need." She looked up at him, tears on her cheeks now. "Why would you do that?" "Because no one should have to face this alone." He thought of the past 2 years of struggling through single parenthood, with no help, of how isolated it had felt. "Because Lily adores you, and you've been kind to both of us. Because it's the right thing to do." Claire broke, then covering her face with her hands as she cried. Ethan stood there, helpless and aching, wanting to comfort her, but not sure if he should. After a moment, he gently touched her shoulder, and she leaned into him. He wrapped his arms around her, felt her shake with sobs, and made a silent promise that she wouldn't go through this alone. Over the next 3 months, Ethan became Claire's support system. He drove her to chemotherapy appointments, while Mrs. Patterson, his neighbor, watched Lily. He brought meals when Claire was too sick to cook. He helped with errands when she was too weak to leave her apartment. Lily made get well cards that covered Claire's refrigerator, colorful crayon drawings that seemed to brighten even the worst days. He watched Claire lose her hair, helped her choose a wig at the medical supply store, told her she was beautiful either way, and meant it. He sat with her through the worst of the nausea, holding a basin and rubbing her back while she was sick. He learned about port placements and blood counts and the strange vocabulary of cancer treatment. And slowly, gradually, something shifted between them. It happened in small moments. The way Claire smiled when he walked into the infusion center. The way his heart lifted when she called just to talk. The way Lily drew pictures of our family that included all three of them. The way he started thinking about Claire first thing in the morning and last thing at night. He was falling in love with her. The realization came one evening as he sat in her apartment reading to her from a book she'd mentioned wanting to finish. She'd fallen asleep on the couch, her head on his shoulder, and looking down at her peaceful face, he'd felt it with absolute certainty. He loved her strength and kindness, and the way she never complained even when he knew she was suffering. Loved the way she still asked about Lily, still cared about her students, still found joy in small things, despite everything. The problem was that Claire was pulling away. It started subtly. Appointments she insisted on getting to herself. Meals she claimed she didn't need. Phone calls that went unanswered. Then one evening in her apartment, she said it directly. "We need to talk." Claire sat on her couch, looking smaller than ever. The chemo had ravaged her body, leaving her thin and pale, but her eyes were still fierce. "I can't let you do this anymore." Ethan set down the groceries he'd brought. "Do what care about you." "I'm not going to make it, Ethan." The words came out harsh, final. "The cancer isn't responding to treatment the way they hoped. They want to try surgery, but the odds..." She shook her head. "I won't let you and Lily get attached just to lose me." "That's not your decision to make." He sat beside her, refusing to accept what she was saying. "It is my decision." Tears streamed down her face now. "I won't let you watch me die. I won't let Lily lose another mother figure. It's better if we end this now." "Claire, please leave." She stood, wrapping her arms around herself. "Don't come back. Don't call." "I mean it, Ethan. I can't do this anymore." He wanted to argue, to fight, to make her see reason, but the look in her eyes stopped him. She was terrified, and she was trying to protect him the only way she knew how. So he left, his heart breaking with every step. The days that followed were agony. Lily asked about Claire, constantly not understanding why they couldn't visit anymore. Ethan made excuses, each one feeling like a lie. He threw himself into work, picking up extra shifts, trying to exhaust himself enough that he wouldn't think about her. It didn't work. Mrs. Patterson found him one evening on the apartment steps, head in his hands. "That girl is scared," his neighbor said, sitting beside him. "She's trying to protect you, but she's wrong. She doesn't want my help. She wants it more than anything. She's just too afraid to accept it." Mrs. Patterson patted his shoulder. "Sometimes loving someone means fighting for them, even when they push you away." Her words echoed in his head for days. He thought about Jessica, who'd left because she gave up. Claire was trying to leave to protect him, which was completely different. She was scared and alone, and facing something terrible, and she'd decided the brave thing was to face it by herself. She was wrong. Ethan researched her surgery, talked to her oncologist after getting permission through Claire's emergency contact information. Dr. Kim was blunt. "The surgery is risky, 40% success rate, but it's her only real chance. She needs support going into it, and she doesn't have anyone. She has me." The words came out with absolute certainty. "When is it scheduled?" 2 weeks, September 23rd. "I'll be there." Dr. Kim studied him for a moment. "She told me she was alone. She didn't mention you. She thinks she's protecting me by pushing me away." Ethan met the doctor's eyes. "But I'm not going anywhere." He spent the next 2 weeks preparing, talked to Lily, explaining that Claire was very sick and needed their support. His daughter's response was immediate. "We should help her dad. That's what families do." The simple truth of it made his throat tight. "You're right, baby. That's exactly what we do." September 23rd arrived, cold and gray autumn settling over Portland, with rain clouds and falling leaves. Ethan arranged for Mrs. Patterson to watch Lily, then drove to St. Vincent Medical Center. His hand shook slightly on the steering wheel. He'd worn his cleanest work shirt, hadn't had time to shower after the morning shift at the carpentry shop. Sawdust still clung to his jacket, but he was here, and that's what mattered. He found the surgical floor checked in at the nurse's station. They directed him to the pre-op rooms, and he walked down the hallway with his heart pounding. What if she refused to see him? What if she was angry? What if... He pushed open the door. Claire sat on the hospital bed in a thin gown, trembling from cold and fear. She looked up when the door opened, clearly expecting a nurse. When she saw Ethan, her eyes went wide. "Ethan, how did you..." "Dr. Kim told me when." He stayed in the doorway, giving her space but refusing to leave. "I wasn't going to let you do this alone. I told you to stay away." But her voice cracked, betraying her. "And I told you that wasn't your decision." He walked closer slowly, like approaching something fragile. "Claire, you don't have to do this. I'm going to die on that table." Tears started falling. "The odds are terrible. I can't ask you to..." "You didn't ask. I chose this." He sat on the edge of her bed, careful not to crowd her. "I chose to be here." "Why?" It came out as a whisper. "Why are you doing this?" He looked at her, this woman who'd somehow become essential to his life, who'd shown his daughter kindness, who'd taught him it was possible to love again, who was terrified and alone, and trying so hard to be brave. He took her hand, felt how cold her fingers were. "Because I need to tell you something before they take you in." His voice was steady now, sure. "And I need you to listen." She nodded, unable to speak. "I'm a single dad, and I love you more than anyone." The words came from somewhere deep, somewhere true. "I know you're scared. I know you think you're protecting me and Lily by pushing us away. But you're wrong. Loving you doesn't scare me. Losing you without fighting for you, that terrifies me." Her tears fell faster now, silent streams down her pale cheeks. "Whatever happens in that operating room, I need you to know this. You are loved. You are worth fighting for." He squeezed her hand gently. "Lily needs you. I need you. Not because we pity you, but because you've become our family." "Ethan." She was sobbing now, covering her face with her free hand. "So please stop trying to be strong alone. Let me be strong with you." She burst into tears, then the kind that shook her whole body. Ethan pulled her into his arms, held her, while she cried out months of fear and loneliness and pain. She clung to him like he was the only solid thing in a collapsing world. "I'm so scared," she whispered against his shoulder. "I don't want to leave you." "Then don't." His own voice broke. "Fight. Come back to us." "What if I don't make it?" "Then I'll have loved you every day until then." He pulled back enough to see her face to make sure she heard this. "And that's enough. I love you too." The words came out choked. "I'm sorry I pushed you away." "No more pushing." He wiped her tears with his thumb. "We face this together." A knock at the door interrupted them. A nurse entered with a clipboard. "Ms. Mitchell, it's time to go to the OR." Claire's grip on Ethan's hand tightened. He stood with her, walked beside the bed, as they wheeled her toward the operating room. At the doors, he leaned down, kissed her forehead. "I'll be right here when you wake up." "Promise." Her voice was small, scared. "Promise." Then she was gone through the double doors that read, "Authorized personnel only." Ethan stood there until the doors closed completely, then made his way to the waiting room. It was empty, except for a few scattered chairs and a television playing morning news on mute. He sat elbows on knees and prayed for the first time in years. Not eloquent prayers, just desperate pleas to whoever might be listening. Please, please let her live. Please bring her back to us. The first hour passed, like years. He couldn't sit still, pacing the waiting room, checking his phone, even though he knew no one would call yet. He thought about the morning, about the fear in Claire's eyes, and the way she'd clung to him, about the words he'd said, words he'd meant with everything in him. He'd told her he loved her, and whatever happened next, at least she knew. By the second hour, Mrs. Patterson arrived with Lily. His daughter ran to him, and he caught her in a hug. "Is Miss Clare going to be okay?" Lily's voice was muffled against his shirt. "I don't know, sweetheart, but she's fighting hard. Can we pray for her?" He looked at his 7-year-old daughter, at her serious expression, and the faith she somehow still had despite everything. "Yes, we can do that." They sat together, Lily's small hand in his, and she spoke simple words into the quiet. "Please help Miss Clare get better. She's really nice, and we love her." "Amen." "Men," Ethan echoed, his throat tight. More people arrived as the morning wore on. Parents from the school who'd heard about the surgery, teachers who worked with Clare, his co-workers from the carpentry shop bringing food and support. Dr. Kim stopped by to check on them, smiled at the growing crowd. "She'd be surprised to see this many people here for her," the doctor said. "She doesn't realize how many people care," Ethan replied, looking around at the small community that had gathered. "She's always so focused on taking care of others." The fourth hour brought doubt. What if something went wrong? What if the surgery revealed the cancer was worse than they thought? What if she didn't wake up? The fears circled in his mind like vultures, and he had to forcibly push them away. She was going to make it. She had to. Mrs. Patterson sat beside him, offering silent support. Lily had fallen asleep with her head on his lap, exhausted from the emotional morning. Around them, people talked in quiet voices, sharing memories of Clare, stories about her kindness and dedication. Ethan listened and learned about the woman he loved from people who'd known her longer. Every story made him love her more. The surgery was supposed to take 4 to 6 hours. At hour 5, Ethan started checking his watch every few minutes. At hour 5.5, he stood and paced again, unable to sit still. At hour 6, the waiting room doors opened. Dr. Rodriguez, the surgeon, stood there, in scrubs, pulling off her surgical cap. Everyone in the room went silent. Ethan's heart stopped. The surgery went well. The doctor's face was tired but smiling. "We removed all visible cancer. Clean margins on all sides." The relief was so intense, Ethan had to sit down. Around him, people were crying, hugging, celebrating. Mrs. Patterson squeezed his shoulder, and he covered his face with his hands, overwhelmed. "She's not out of the woods yet," Dr. Rodriguez continued. "Recovery will be long and difficult. She'll need extensive care and monitoring, but she has a real fighting chance now." "Can I see her?" Ethan's voice came out rough. "She's in recovery. Give it about an hour, then yes. One visitor at a time initially." That hour was the longest yet. Lily woke up, and he told her the good news, watched her face light up with joy. People slowly filtered out, heading back to their lives, leaving well wishes and promises to visit. Finally, a nurse came to get him. "She's awake. She's asking for you." The recovery room was quiet. Machines beeping softly. Monitors glowing in the dim light. Claire lay in the bed, pale as the sheets with tubes and wires connecting her to various machines. But her eyes were open, and when she saw him, they filled with tears. "Ethan." Her voice was barely a whisper, hoarse from the breathing tube. He crossed to her side in 3 quick steps, took her hand carefully. "Hey, you did it. You're okay." "I made it." The question came out, wondering, disbelieving. "You made it. The surgery was successful. Dr. Rodriguez said she got all the cancer." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "I heard you. In the pre-op room. What you said, every word was true." He stroked her hair back from her forehead, gentle. "I meant all of it. I don't deserve you." "Yes, you do." He said it firmly, needing her to believe it. "And I'm not going anywhere." A nurse came in to check her vitals, smiled at them both. She's doing remarkably well. She's a fighter." "I know she is." Ethan didn't take his eyes off Claire. The following days were a blur of hospital visits, recovery updates, and careful optimism. Claire stayed in the hospital for a week, growing stronger each day. Ethan visited every afternoon after work, bringing Lily on weekends. His daughter made cards, read stories, and filled the sterile room with childish joy that seemed to speed Claire's healing. Physical therapy was brutal. Ethan watched Claire work through painful exercises, saw her frustration when her body wouldn't cooperate. "This is so hard," she said one afternoon, tears of frustration on her cheeks. "You've survived harder." He handed her the water bottle she'd asked for. "This is just one more step." Her doctors marveled at her recovery speed. "She has a strong will to live," Dr. Kim told Ethan privately. Having a support system makes all the difference. The school arranged for a substitute teacher, sent cards and gifts. The community rallied, bringing meals and encouragement. Claire, who'd been so certain she was alone, discovered she was surrounded by people who cared. But the person who never left, who showed up every single day without fail, was Ethan. 3 months after surgery, Claire got her clean bill of health. The cancer was gone, though she'd need regular monitoring for years. When the doctor delivered the news, she broke down crying, and Ethan held her through it, his own relief making him shake. The day she was discharged, Ethan picked her up with Lily bouncing excitedly in the back seat. His daughter had made a banner that read, "Welcome home," decorated with glitter and stickers. When Claire saw it, she started crying again. "We have a surprise for you," Lily announced as Ethan drove. "We talked about it," he added, glancing at Claire. "And we want you to stay with us while you fully recover. We have a spare room, and Lily wants to help take care of you. And—" he trailed off, suddenly uncertain. "Please, Miss Claire." Lily leaned forward between the seats. "We want to be a family." Claire looked at them both, at this makeshift family that had fought for her when she'd tried to fight alone. "Okay," she whispered. "Yes, I'd love that." Moving in was simple because Claire owned so little. They carried her belongings up to Ethan's apartment in one trip, set her up in the small second bedroom that had been serving as storage. Lily immediately declared herself the official nurse, bringing water and snacks and anything else Claire might need. That first evening they had dinner together at the small kitchen table. Lily chattered about school and friends and a dinosaur book she'd read. Claire listened with genuine interest, asking questions and smiling. Ethan watched them both and felt something settle in his chest. This was right. This was what he'd been missing without knowing it. After Lily went to bed, Ethan and Claire sat on the couch together. She'd gotten tired easily, still recovering her strength slowly. She leaned against him, and he wrapped his arm around her shoulders. "A year ago I thought my life was over," she said quietly. "And now I know it was just beginning." She looked up at him, and in her eyes, he saw everything he felt reflected back. Love, gratitude, hope for the future they'd almost lost. He kissed her, then soft and careful, mindful of how fragile she still was. She kissed him back, and it felt like a promise, like a beginning. The months that followed weren't perfect. Claire had setbacks, days where the fear came back, moments when she worried the cancer would return. Ethan had his own struggles balancing work and family and learning how to be in a relationship again. Lily adjusted to having Claire around full-time, testing boundaries and seeking reassurance that this time the person she was learning to love wouldn't leave. But they faced it all together. Claire returned to teaching part-time, her students welcoming her back with handmade cards and enthusiastic hugs. Ethan kept working at the carpentry shop, though he cut back on the security shifts now that Claire's rent wasn't a concern. Lily thrived with 2 people who loved her unconditionally, her withdrawn behavior at school disappearing completely. 1 year after Claire's surgery, the school held another fall festival. Ethan built the game booths again, but this time, Claire stood beside him, healthy and glowing, directing volunteers and organizing chaos. Lily played with her friends, running back regularly to hug both of them. As the festival wound down, Ethan stood with Claire, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. She leaned into him, his arm around her waist, and he marveled at how different this moment was from the previous year, how close they'd come to losing everything. "Thank you," Claire said softly, "for not giving up on me. Thank you for letting me fight for you." He kissed the top of her head. "For letting us be your family." "Our family," she corrected and smiled up at him. People walking past didn't look at them with pity anymore. They saw what Ethan had built, what they'd all built together. A family that had chosen each other, that had fought through cancer and fear and loss to find something worth keeping. A father who'd learned to love again. A woman who'd learned she didn't have to face the world alone. A child who had the stability and love every kid deserved. Later that evening, after the festival ended and the decorations came down, they drove home through Portland's quiet streets. Lily fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted and happy. Claire held Ethan's hand across the center console, her fingers warm and steady in his. He thought about everything that had led to this moment. The divorce that had left him broken, the years of struggling alone. The day he'd walked into Claire's classroom and felt something shift, the terror of watching her fight cancer. The moment in that hospital room when he'd laid his heart bare, not knowing if she'd survived the surgery. They say single fathers have it hard, and that's true. But they also say love can heal, that second chances exist, that families come in all forms. Ethan had discovered all of that was true too. He'd been given something he thought was lost forever, the chance to love and be loved in return. The chance to build a family not from obligation or biology, but from choice and commitment and showing up even when it was hard. He wasn't a single dad anymore. He was part of something bigger, something better. They all were, and that night, pulling into the parking lot of their modest apartment building, carrying his sleeping daughter inside, while Claire walked beside him, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in years. He felt complete. He felt home. The journey hadn't been easy, and the future still held uncertainties. Claire would need regular checkups for years. Life would throw new challenges their way, but they'd proven they could face anything as long as they faced it together. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything.